Alright, guys, let me just sit a little bit there. Alright, guys, welcome back to my second part, 1 hour reading with me. I hope we're together. So, I'm going to proceed from the bolded text written 30 cents later. If you haven't seen the first video, better go watch it. That's where we ended. So, let's proceed. 30 cents later. By 9 o'clock a.m. that day, Mike and I were working for Miss Martin. She was a kind and patient woman. She always said that Mike and I reminded her of her two grown sons. Although, although kind, she believed in hard work and kept us moving. We spent 3 hours talking, taking canned goods off the shelves, brushing each can with a feather duster to get dust off, and then restocking them neatly. It was excruciating, boring work. Mike's dad, whom I call my rich dad, owned 9 of these little separates, each with a large parking lot. They were the early version of the 7-Eleven convenience stores. Little neighborhood grocery store where people people bought items such as milk, bread, butter, and cigarettes. The problem was that this was Hawaii before air conditioning was widely used, and the stores could not close their doors because of the heat. On two sides of the store, the doors had to be wide open to the road and the parking lots. Every car drove by or pulled into the parking lot, dust would swirl and settle in the store. We knew we had a job as long as there was no air conditioning. For 3 weeks, Mike and I reported to Miss Martin, worked our 3 hours. By noon, our work was over, and she dropped 3 little dimes in each of our hands. Now, even at the age of 9 in the mid 1950s, 30 cents was not too exciting. Comic books could cost 10 cents back then, so I usually spent my money on comic books and went home. By Wednesday of the fourth week, I was ready to quit. I had agreed to work only because I wanted to learn to make money from Mike's start. And now I was only I was only I was a slave for 10 cents an hour. On top of that, I had not seen Mike's dad since that first Saturday. Sorry, my voice cracking. I'm quitting, I told Mike at lunchtime. School was boring, and now I did not even have any Saturdays to look forward to. But it was the 30 cents that really got to me. This time Mike smiled. What are you laughing at? I asked with an anger and frustration. Dad said this will happen, and he said to meet with him when you are ready to quit. What? I said indignantly. He's been waiting for me to get fed up. Sort of, Mike said. Dad's kind of different. He doesn't teach like your dad. Your mom and dad lecture a lot. My dad is quiet and a man of few words. You just wait till this Saturday. I'll tell him you're ready. You mean I've been set up? No, not really, but maybe. Dad will explain on Saturday. Wage line on the Saturday. I was ready to face Mike's dad. Even my real dad was angry with him. My real dad, the one I call the poor one, thought that my rich dad was violating child's child labor laws and should be investigated. My educated, poor dad told me to demand what I deserve, at least 25 cents an hour. My poor dad told me that if I did not get a raise, I was to quit immediately. You told you don't need that dime job anyway, said my poor dad with indignation. At 8 o'clock Saturday morning, I walked through the door of Mike's house when Mike's dad opened it. Take a seat and wait in line, he said as I entered. He turned and disappeared into his little office next to the bedroom. I looked around the room and I didn't see Mike anywhere. Feeling awkward, I cautiously sat down next to the same two women who were there 4 weeks earlier. They smiled and slid down the couch to make room for me. 45 minutes went by and I was steaming. The two women and had met with him and left 30 minutes earlier. An older gentleman was there, in there for 20 minutes and was also gone. The house was empty, and I sat in a mossy, dark living room on a beautiful sunny Hawaii day, waiting to talk to a cheapskate who exploited children. I could hear him rustling around the office, talking on the phone and ignoring me. I was ready to walk out, but for some reasons I stayed. Finally, 15 minutes later, at exactly 9 o'clock, Richard walked out of his office, said nothing, and signaled with his hands for me to enter. I understand you want to raise, or you're going to quit, Richard said as he swiveled in his office chair. Well, you're not keeping your ends of the bargain, I blurted out, nearly in tears. It is really frightening for me to confront a grown-up. You said that you will teach me if I work for you. Well, I've worked for you. I've worked hard. I've given up my baseball games to work for you. But you haven't kept your word, and you haven't taught me anything. You are a crook, like everyone in town thinks you are. You are greedy, you want all the money, and you don't take care of our employees. You made me wait and don't show me any respect. I'm only a little boy, but I deserve to be treated better. Richard rocked back in his swivel chair, hands up to his chin, and stared at me. Not bad, he said. In less than a month, you sound like most of my employees. What? I asked. To understand what he was saying, I continued with my grievance. I thought you were going to keep your end of the game and teach me. Instead, you want to torture me. That's cruel. That's really cruel. I am teaching you, Rich Dad said quietly. What have you told me? Nothing. I said angrily. You haven't even talked to me once since I agreed to work for peanuts. 10 cents an hour? Ha! I should notify the government about you. We have child labor laws. You know, my dad works for the government. Whoa, said Rich Dad. Now you sound just like most of the people who used to work for me. People I've either fired or who have quit. So, what do you have to say? I demanded, feeling pretty brave for a little kid. You lied to me. I've worked for you, and you have not kept your word. You haven't told me anything. How do you know that I've not told you anything? Asked Rich Dad calmly. Well, you've never talked to me. I've worked for 3 weeks, and you have not taught me anything, I said with a spout. Does teaching mean talking or literature? Rich Dad asked. Well, yes, I replied. That's all they teach you in school, he said, smiling. But that is not how life teaches you. And I would say that life is the best teacher of all. Most of the time, life does not talk to you, it just sort of pushes you around. Each push in life saying, wake up, there is something I want you to learn. What is this man talking about? I asked myself silently. Life pushing me around. Was life talking to me? Now, I knew I had to quit my job. I was talking to someone who needed to be locked up. If you learn life lessons, you will do well. If not, life will just continue to push you around. People do two things. Some just let life push them around. Some just let people, some just let life push them around. Others get angry and push back, but they push back against their boss or their job or their husband or wife. They do not know it's life that's pushing. I had no idea what he was talking about. Life pushes us all around. Some people give up and others fight. A few learn the lesson and move on. They welcome life pushing them around. To these few people, it means they need and they want to learn something. They learn and move on. Most quit and feel like you fight. Rich Dad stood and shut the creaky old wooden window that needed repair. If you learn this lesson, you will grow into wise, healthy, and happy young man. If you don't, you will spend your life blaming a job, low pay, or your boss for your problems. You live life always hoping for the big break that will solve all your money problems. Richard looked over at me to see if I was still listening. His eyes met mine. We stared at each other, communicating through our eyes. Finally, I looked away once I had absorbed his message. I knew he was bright. I was blaming him, and I did ask to learn. I was fighting. Rich Dad continued, or or if you are the kind of person who has no guts, you just give up every time life pushes you. If you are the kind of person, you live all your life playing it safe, doing the right things, saving your life yourself for some event that never happens. Then you die a boring old man. You'll have lots of friends who really like you because you're such a nice, hardworking guy. But the truth is that you let life push you into submission. Deep down, you were terrified of taking risks. You really wanted to win, but the fear of losing was greater than the excitement of winning. Deep inside, you and only you will know you didn't go for it. You chose to play it safe. Our eyes met again. You've been pushing me around, I asked. Some people might say, smiled Rich Dad. I would say that I just gave you a taste of life. What taste of life? I asked, still angry, but now curious and ready to learn. You boys are the first people who have ever asked me to teach them how to make money. I have more than 150 employees, and not one of them has asked me what I know about money. They ask me for a job and a paycheck, but never to teach them about money. So most will spend the best years of their lives working for money, not really understanding what it is they're working for. I sat there learning intently. So when Mike told me you wanted to learn how to make money, I decided to design a course that mirrored real life. I could talk until I was blue in the face, but you wouldn't care a thing. So I decided to let life push you around a bit so you could hear me. That's why I only paid you 10 cents. So what is the lesson I learned from working for only 10 cents an hour? I asked that you're cheap and exploit workers. Richard rocked back and laughed heartily. Finally, he said, you'd best change your point of view. Stop blaming me and thinking I am the problem. If you think I am the problem, then you have to change me. If you realize that you are the problem, then you can change yourself. Learn something and grow wiser. Most people want everyone else in the world to change but themselves. Let me tell you, it's easier to change yourself than everyone else. Let me repeat again that bar. It's easier to change yourself than everyone else. Beautiful. Nice. I don't understand, I asked. Don't blame me for your problems, Richard said, growing impatient. But you only pay me 10 cents. So, what are you learning? Richard asked, smiling. That you're cheap, I said with a sly grin. Say, you think I'm the problem, said Richard. But you are. Well, keep the attitude and you'll learn nothing. Keep the attitude that I am the problem. And what choices do you have? Well, If you don't pay me more or show me more respect and teach me, I will quit. Well put, well put, Rich Dad said. And that's exactly what most people do. Quit and go looking for another job, better opportunity, a higher pay, actually thinking that this will solve the problem. In most cases, it won't. So what should I do? I asked. Just take this necessary, just take this measly 10 cents an hour and smile. Rich Dad smiled. That's what other people do, but that's all they do. Waiting for a raise, thinking that more money will solve their problems. Most just accept it, and some take a second job, working harder, but again accepting a small paycheck. I sat staring at the floor, beginning to understand the lesson Rich Dad was presenting. I could sense it was a taste of life. Finally, I looked up and asked, so what will solve the problem? This, he said, leaning forward in his chair, tapping me gently on the head. This stuff between your ears. It was at that moment that Rich Dad shared the pivotal point of view that separated him from his employees and my poor dad, and led him to eventually become one of the richest men in Hawaii. While my educated but poor dad struggled financially all his life, it was a singular point of view that made all the difference over a lifetime. Rich Dad explained this point of view over and over, which I call lesson number one. The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. On that bright Saturday morning, I learned a completely different point of view from what I had been taught by my poor dad. At the age of 9, I understood that both dads wanted me to learn. Both dads encouraged me to study, but not the same things. My highly educated dad recommended I I do what he did. Son, I want you to study hard and get good grades so you can find a safe, secure job with a big company and make sure it has excellent benefits. My rich dad wanted me to learn how money works so I could make it work for me. These lessons will learn I will learn through life, but but with his guidance, not because of a classroom. My rich dad continued my first lesson. I'm glad you got angry about working for 10 cents an hour. If you hadn't got angry and had simply accepted it, I would have to tell you that I will not teach you. See, you see, true learning takes energy, passion, and burning desire. Anger is the big part of that formula. The passion is anger and love combined. When it comes to money, most people want to play it safe and feel secure. So passion does not direct them. Fear does. So is that why they'll take jobs with low pay? I asked. Yes, said Rich Dad. Some people say I exploit people. because I don't pay as much as the sugar plantation or the government. I say the people exploit themselves. It's their fear, not mine. But don't you feel you should pay them more? I asked. I don't have to. And besides, more people will not solve more money will not solve their problems. Just look at your dad. He makes a lot of money and still and he still can pay his bills. Most people given more money only get into more debt. That's why the 10 cents an hour, I said, smiling. It's part of the lesson. That's right, smiled my rich dad. You see, your dad went to school and got an excellent education so he could get a high paying job, but he still has money problems because he never learned anything about money in school. On top of that, he believed in working for money. And you want? I asked. No, not really, said Rich Dad. If you want to learn to work for money, then stay in school. That is a great place to learn to do that. But if you want to learn, but if you want to learn how to make money work for you, then I will teach you that. But only if you want to learn. Well, then everyone want to hear that? I asked. No, said Rich Dad. Simply because it's easier to learn to work for money, especially if fear is your primary emotion when the subject of money is discussed. I don't understand, I said with a frown. Don't worry about that for now. Just know that it's fear that keeps most people working at a job. The fear of not paying their bills, the fear of being fired, the fear of not having enough money, the fear of starting over. That's the price of studying to learn a profession or trade and then working for money. Most people become a slave to money and they get angry at their boss. Learning to have money work for you is a completely different course of study. I asked. Absolutely, Rich Dad answered. Absolutely. I sat in silence on that beautiful Hawaiian Saturday morning. My friends had just started the Little League baseball game, but for some reasons, I was now thankful I had decided to work for 10 cents an hour. I sensed that I was about to learn something my friends wouldn't learn in school. Ready to learn? Asked my rich dad. Absolutely, with a grin. I have kept my promise. I've been teaching you from afar, my rich dad said. At 9 years old, you have gotten a taste of what it feels like to work for money. Just multiply your last month by 50 years, and you'll have an idea of what most people spend their life doing. I don't understand, I said. How did you feel waiting in line to see me? Once you get hired and once you ask for money. Terrible, I said. If you choose to work for money, that that is what life will be like, said Rich Dad. And how did you feel when Miss Martin dropped the 3 dimes in your hands for 3 hours of work? I felt like it wasn't enough. It seemed like nothing. I was disappointed. I said, but, and that is how most employees feel when they look at their paychecks, especially after all the tax and other deductions are taken out. At least you got 100%. You mean most workers don't get paid everything? I said with amazement. Heavens no, said Rich Dad. The government always takes the share first. How do you do that? I asked. Taxes, said Rich Dad. You are taxed when you eat, when you earn, you're taxed when you spend, you're taxed when you save, you're taxed when you die. Why do people let the government do that to them? The rich don't, the rich don't, said Rich Dad with a smile. The poor and the middle class too. I bet you, I'll bet you that they earn more than your dad, and yet he still pays more in taxes. Would someone let the government do that to them? Rich Dad rocked slowly and silently in his chair, just looking, just looking at me. Ready to learn? He asked. I nodded my head slowly. As I said, there is a lot to learn. Learning how to have money work for you is a lifetime study. Most people go to college for 4 years and the education ends. I already know that my study of money will continue over my lifetime, simply because the more I find out I need to know. Most people never study the subjects. They go to work, get the paychecks, balance the checkbooks, and that's it. Then they wonder why they have money problems. They think more money will solve their problems and don't realize that it's their lack of financial education that is the problem. So my dad has tax problems because he doesn't understand money. I asked, confused. Look, said my rich dad, taxes are just one small section and on learning how to help money work for you. Today, I just wanted to find out if you still have the passion to learn about money. Most people don't. They want to go to school, learn a profession, and have fun at their work and earn lots of money. One day, they wake up with big money problems, and then they can't stop working. That's the price of only knowing how to work for money instead of how to have money work for you. So, do you still have the passion to learn? Asked Rich Dad. I nodded my head. Good, said Rich Dad. Now get back to work. This time I'll pay you nothing. What? I asked in amazement. You heard me. Nothing. You will work the same 3 hours every Saturday, but this time you will not be paid 10 cents per hour. Said you said you wanted to learn you said you wanted to learn not to work for money. So I'm not going to pay you anything. I could I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I've already had this conversation with Mike, and he's already working, dusting and stacking canned goods for free. You'd better hurry and get back there. That's not fair, I shouted. You have got to pay something. You said you wanted to learn. If you don't learn this now, you will grow up to be like the two women and the older man sitting in my living room, working for money and hoping I don't fire them. Or like your dad, earning lots of money only to be in debt up his eyeballs, hoping more money will solve the problems. If that's what you want, I'll go back to our original deal of 10% of 10 cents an hour. Or you can do what most adults do, complain that there is not enough pay, quit, and go looking for another job. But what do I do? I asked. Rich Dad tapped me on the head. Use this, he said. If you use it well, you will soon thank me for giving you an opportunity and you will grow into a rich man. I stood there, still not believing what a raw deal I was handed. I continued to ask for a raise, and somehow I insisted working for nothing. Rich Dad tapped me on the head, and again I said, and again said, use this. Now get out of here and get back to work. Lesson 1. The rich don't work for money. I'll repeat. Lesson 1. The rich don't work for money. I didn't tell my poor dad I wasn't being paid. He wouldn't have understood, and I didn't want to try to explain something I didn't understand myself. For 3 more weeks, Mike and I worked for 3 hours every Saturday for nothing. The work didn't bother me and the routine got easier, but it was the missed baseball games and not being able to afford to buy a few comic books that got to me. Rich Dad by stopped by at noon on the third week. He heard his truck pull up in the parking lot and spotted when the engine was turned off. He entered the store and greeted Miss Martin with a hug, and finding out how things were going in the stores, he reached into the ice cream freezer, pulled out 2 bars, paid for them, and signaled to Mike and me, let's go for work, boys. We crossed the street, dodging a few cars, and walked across a large grassy field where a few adults were playing softballs. Sitting down at a lone picnic table, he handed Mike and me the treats. How is it going, boys? Okay, Mike said. I nodded in agreement. Learn anything yet? Rich Dad asked. Mike and I looked at each other, shrugged our shoulders, and shook our heads in unison. Avoid one of life's biggest, biggest traps. Well, you boys had better start thinking. You're staring at one of the life's biggest lessons. If you learn it, you'll enjoy a life of great freedom and security. If you don't, you'll wind up like Miss Martin and most people playing softball in this park. They work very hard for little money, clinging to the illusion of job and looking forward to 3 week vacation each year. And maybe a skimpy pension that 45 years after 45 years of service. If they decide to, I'll give you a raise to 20 cents, 25 cents an hour. But these are good, these are good, hardworking people. Are you making fun of them? I demanded. A smile came over Rich Dad's face. Miss Merchant is like a mother to me. I will never be that cruel. I may sound unkind because I'm doing my best to point something out of you too. Want to expand your point of view? So you could do something most people never have the benefit of seeing because the vision is too narrow. Most people never see the trap they're in. Mike and I sat there uncertain of his message. He sounded cruel, but but we could make sense. He was trying to drive home a point. With a smile, Rich Dad said, "Doesn't that 25 cents an hour sound good? Doesn't it make your heart beat a little faster?" I shook my head. No, but it really did. 25 cents an hour will be bucks, big bucks for me. But I'll pay you a dollar. Okay, I'll pay you a dollar an hour, Rich Dad said, with a sly grin. Now my head started to race. My brain was screaming, take it, take it. I couldn't, I could not believe what I was hearing. Still, I said nothing. My little brain and heart nearly exploded. After all, it was 1956. Being paid $2 an hour would make me the richest kid in the world. I couldn't imagine earning that kind of money. I wanted to say yes. I wanted the deal, but I could picture a new bicycle, new baseball glove, and the adoration of my friends when I flashed some cash. On top of that, Jimmy and his rich kids could never call me poor again. But somehow my mouth was shut. An ice cream had melted, and it was running down my hand. Rich Dad was looking at two boys staring at him, eyes wide open and brains empty. He was testing us, and he knew there was a part of our emotion that wanted to take the deal. But he understood that every person has a was weak, and a needy part of their soul can be bought. And he knew that every individual also had a part of the soul that was resilient and could never be bought. I was only a, I was only a question. It is only a question of which one was stronger. Okay, $5 an hour. Suddenly, I was silent. Something had changed. The offer was so big and ridiculous. Not many grown-ups in 1956 had made more than that. But quickly my temptation disappeared and calm set in. Slowly I turned to my left to look at Mike. He looked back at me. The part of my soul that was weak and needy was silenced. Part of me that had no price took over. I knew Mike had gotten to that point too. This is a bar down here. People's lives are forever controlled by two emotions, fear and greed. Good, Rich Dad said softly. Most people have a price, and they have a price because of human emotions, named fear and greed. First, The fear of being without money motivates us to work hard, and then once we get that paycheck, greed or desire starts as thinking about all the wonderful things money can buy. The pattern is then set. What pattern? I asked. The pattern of get up, go to work, pay bills, get up, and go to work, pay bills. People's lives are forever controlled by two emotions, fear and greed. Offer them more money, and they continue to cycle by increasing their spending. This is what I call the rat race. There is another way, Mike asked. Yes, said reached out slowly, but only a few people find it. And what is that way? Mike said. Mike asked. Uh, that's what I hope you boys will learn as you work and study with me. That is why I took away all forms of pay. Any hints? Mike asked. We we're kind of tired working hard, especially for nothing. Well, the first step is telling the truth, said Rich Dad. We haven't been lying, I said. I did not say you have been lying. I said to tell the truth. Rich Dad resorted. The truth about what? I asked. How you're feeling? Rich Dad said. You don't have to say it to anyone else. Just admit it to yourself. You mean the people in this park? The people who work for you? Miss, Miss Martin, they don't do that? I asked. I doubt it, said Rich Dad. Instead, they feel the fear of not having money. They don't confront it logically. They react emotionally instead of using their heads. Rich Dad said. Then they get a few bucks in their hands, and again, the emotions of joy, desire, and greed take over, and again they react instead of think. So the emotions control the brain, Mike said. That's correct, said Richard. Instead of admitting the truth about how they feel, they react to their feelings and fail to think. They feel the fear, so they go to work, hoping that money will soothe their fear, but it doesn't. It continues to haunt them, and they return to work, hoping again that money will change, will calm their fears, and again it doesn't. Fear keeps them in this trap for earning earning money, uh, hoping the fear will go away. But every day they get up, and that's all the fear wakes up with them. More for millions of people, that old fear keeps them awake all night, causing the night of turmoil and worry. So they get up and go to work, hoping that a paycheck will kill their fear, gnawing at their soul. Money is running their lives, and they refuse to tell the truth about that. Money is in control of their emotions and their souls. Rich Dad sat quietly, letting his words sink in. Mike and I heard what he said, but didn't understand fully what he was talking about. I just knew that I often wondered why grown-ups hurried off to work. I did not It did not seem like much fun, but they never looked that happy. But something had kept them going. Realizing we had absorbed as much as possible of what he was talking about, Rich Dad said, I want you boys to avoid the trap. That is really what I want to teach you. Not just to be rich, because being rich does not solve the problem. It doesn't? I asked surprised. No, it doesn't. Let me explain the other emotion, desire. Some call it greed, but I prefer desire. It's perfectly normal to desire something better, prettier, more fun, or exciting. So people also work for money because of desire. They desire money for the joy they think it can buy. But the joy that money brings is often short lived, and they soon need more money for more joy, more pleasure, no more pleasure, more comfort, and more security. So they keep working, thinking money will soothe their souls that are troubled by fear and desire. But money can't do that. Even rich people do this. Even rich people do this? Mike asked. Rich people included, said Rich Dad. In fact, the reason why many rich people are rich isn't because of desire, but because of fear. They believe that money can eliminate the fear of being poor. So a mass tons of it only to find the fear gets worse. Now they fear losing money. I have friends who keep working even though they have plenty. I know people who have millions who are more afraid now than when they were poor. They were terrified of losing it all. Fears drove them to get rich, to get worse, to get to get rich. Fear drove them to get rich, got worse. That weak and needy part of their soul is actually screaming louder. They don't want to lose the big houses, the cars, and the high life money has bought them. They worry about their friends, but although they worry that their friends would say if they lost all their money. Many are emotionally desperate and neurotic, although they look rich and have more money. So is a poor man happier? I asked. No, I don't think so, replied Rich Dad. The avoidance of money is just as psychotic as being attached to money. As if on cue, the town derelict went past our table, stopping by the large rubbish can, rummaging around in it. Three of us watched him with great interest. When before we probably when before we probably would have just ignored him, Rich Dad pulled $1 out of his wallet and gestured to the old man. Seeing the money, the derelict came over immediately, took the bill, and thanked Rich Dad profusely, and hurried off ecstatic with his good fortune. He's not much different from most of my employees, said my rich dad. I have met so many people who say, "Oh, I'm not interested in money," yet they work for They work at a job for 8 hours a day. That's a denial of truth. If they weren't interested in money, then why are they working? That kind of thinking is probably more psychotic than a person who owes money. As I sat there listening to my rich dad, my, as I sat there listening to my rich dad, my mind flashed back to the countless times my own dad said, "I'm not interested in money." He said those words often. He also covered himself by always saying, "I work because I love my job." So many people say, "Oh, I'm not interested in money," yet they still work for a job for 8 hours a day. Wow, this is so true. So what do you do? I said, "Not work for money until all the traces of fear and greed are gone? No, that will be a waste of time," said Rich Dad. Emotions are what make us human. The word emotion stands for energy in motion. Be trustful about your emotions and use your minds and emotions in your favor, not against yourself. "Well," said Mike, "don't worry about what I just said. It will make more sense in years to come." Just as don't worry about what I just said. It will make more sense in years to come. Just be an observer, not a reactor to your emotions. Most people do not know what it's the emotions that are doing the thinking. Your emotions are your emotions, but you've got to learn to do your own thinking. "Can you give me an example?" I said. "Sure," replied Rich Dad. "When a person says, 'I need to find a job,' it's more likely an emotion doing the thinking. Fear of not having money generates that thought. But people do need money if they have bills to pay," I said. "Sure they do," smiled Rich Dad. "All I'm saying is that it's fear that is all too often doing the thinking." Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that's the reading of today. That's the 1 hour of today, guys. We'll proceed tomorrow for the next part of reading this book. So I'm going to be proceeding with a 1 hour reading every day until we finish the book. So if you have started this journey with me, I wish you nothing but the best. I believe that I might be in my audiobooks might be interesting to listen, but we're proceeding. As right now it is 9 a.m., so I'm looking forward to head somewhere else. I wish you nothing but the best. Good luck into pursuing your goals in life. This is Ernest Forte. I wish you nothing but the best. All I'm searching right now is developing massively intellectually, spiritually, and um physically. Those are the three planes of existence. So if you get to master the three planes of existence, trust me, you are on your right track to success. That's what I believe. That's what I'm pursuing right now. So God is good all the time. I wish you nothing but the best. Have a good day. Bye.